We are live. Greetings.
Hello, Ara. Hello, Alexandros. Hello, Anne.
Hello,
Hi to
hello.
all.
So, I didn't read the whole thing because, obviously, the book is massive. I didn't even read any full chapter, but I was skimming this chapter and there were a lot of interesting things. So it seems like you intentionally had the garden imagery and snake imagery and apple imagery, like referring to Genesis. But even though it
Yeah,
seems like in Genesis, they don't really outright mention it's an apple. Even though in all the paintings it's an apple, they don't mention what fruit it is. They just say from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And they say they had fig trees. Fig leaves, but we don't know like any other leaves. So some people say maybe it was a fig or something. But
so, well, the apple also works at this level, the story of Genesis, but it also works on a simpler level. It's a ripe apple and a rotten apple. And we have an innate attraction to the ripe apple and to the repulsion of the rotten apple. And it's not something that is, socially constructed. It's something that is constructed through evolution, because we need to be able to identify nutritious fruits, and we need to avoid eating fruits that are rotten, and the same with every other kind of food. So even at this very basic level, this kind of, it's an aesthetic judgment, so to speak, yeah, because you do consider it ugly, the rotten apple in most cases. So it is an aesthetic judgment, and it just goes to show at the very basic level how the aesthetic judgment is bound to a survival benefit. So that's the story of the apple. But you also mentioned snake. Yeah, that's another story, and I think that is highly relevant to Genesis. I think, and there's the snake, and there's Raquel Welch. So yeah, there's the question and the legend.
So you have the apple, you have the snake, and you have the beautiful woman. So it's
Yeah, so it's all there. You see, it's all there.
And what's so fascinating too, working with Alexandros, I learned there's a special nerve right next to the eye for detecting snakes.
Well,
wow.
that's what was what to say that a bit more sort of high resolution fashion. Not a nerve, but there's I have to sort of give some background to that. Normally, when we view something, the main visual pathway is from the retina to the thalamus, which is a relay station, and then to the visual cortex, and various levels of the visual cortex where it gets analyzed in its constituents, like the color and motion and things like that. There are, however, some other shortcuts, so to speak, that seem to be older in the evolutionary sense. One of them is from the eyes, it goes to the superior colliculus. That is an older center, and in us, in humans, has not been abandoned, because evolution doesn't work like this. It has a specific task, and the task is, when somebody approaches us from the side, when something is moving in our side, the peripheral vision field, we have to look to see what it is, and then we actually see it with the visual cortex and we register it. Okay, so this is the only visual area that birds have, for example, because for them it's very, very important not to analyze things so much, but to react. So that's one thing. The other thing is what Anne mentioned. There is another pathway, that there is a specific center in the thalamus, in the relay station. It's called the pulvinar, and that seems to be reacting specifically. It does other things too, but it seems to be preferentially reacting to snakes in comparison to other stimuli.
Exactly right.
And then from that, it takes a shortcut and signals the amygdala, which creates the sensation of fear. So
Right.
we're afraid of the snake even before we consciously analyze it using our visual cortex.
Right.
Those milliseconds might save our lives. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's the amazing thing, that there's this, that before we even know what you're looking at, the brain's already responding. And because of the pulvinar in the thalamus, they call it specialized snake detection theory, the specialized area just for detecting snakes in the pulvinar. And they think monkeys have it too.
Yeah.
All primates have it, and it evolved because of the competition on the savannah between our chimpanzee ancestors and ourselves. There was a big competition between snakes and primates, and we evolved it. And the fact is, we still have it, and that's amazing to me.
There is this theory by Lynn Isbell that actually this competition with snakes has helped sharpen our visual perception.
Right.
So if you think about it, the snakes and generally serpents were serious predators for our ancestors, and even before the primates. Okay, so one could think of stories like the snake in the Garden of Eden as echoing a kind of phylogenetically lived experience of our species. Many of these stories can be seen like that.
Right.
Because people think that it's very scientific to say, this is just rubbish, it's fairy tales. Yeah, but where do fairy tales come from? It's not rubbish at all.
No.
There's something very
No.
deep in there.
Yes.
And you don't have to believe that there was a dude and a lady called Adam and Eve 6,000 years ago to take it seriously. You can take it seriously in a different way.
And some of the science, the research they've done on this is fantastic. I just found a thing here that they've researched macaque monkeys who've never seen a snake in their life. And then they presented them with a snake, and already they're responding. Isn't that amazing? So it's evolutionarily in us for a reason. The ancestors that didn't have that snake detection ability, they didn't survive. And I also think that actually, it's actually, I think it's also relevant to the way when we walk, the way we hold our head. It's at 10 to 15 degrees looking down all the time. We never tend to look up or to the side. We tend to look, why? I think it's because we're still thinking we're walking and a snake might be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see snakes when I go for my morning walk. So you have to be looking down. I don't want to can we make just a side break from this, because some of our listeners may not know what we're talking about. This is a video on architecture and design, and specifically we have invited Dr. Alexandros Lavdas from Bolzano, Italy, to discuss his chapter of what? Anne, tell us, please.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. This is really game changing. This new book, Routledge asked us to put together this book 2 years ago. It's called The Handbook of Neuroscience in the Built Environment, because they're realizing that bridging the arts and sciences is becoming a thing. It allows them to publish more books and to get more money. And so this book came out, and it's the first book in history to have 31 chapters by 50 authors on 14 countries, in 14 countries, talking about basically the game-changing time we're in, how not only can we understand we now have a snake detector in our brain, but also we can now understand how the brain and body respond. The fact we got so many people for free to provide their expertise is amazing. It shows we're in shape-shifting time. And so Alexandros is talking about, Alexandros is the lead editor in this book. I'm also an editor, as is Vernon Woodworth, an architect in Boston. And it's an opportunity, I think, to stage a new foundation for architectural education, as well as architectural practice. So Alexandros is talking about chapter 2, his chapter in the book.
Anne, if I pretend to be a student, please tell us in 2 sentences, what can a student learn to improve their design from this handbook?
Oh, well, it's a little bit overwhelming. You can really understand how, just to go through the different parts of the handbook, how evolution and biology really matter in architecture and how to think about them. Because right now, I mean, I didn't get my degree till 1994, but there was no biology or psychology requirement. And I believe in most colleges, there still is not, to get an architecture or design degree. So we talk about how you really need to understand biology in 21st century design. We also talk about human social behavior and how we're built for connection. and how the built environment comes together. It will either improve connection, like when you walk through Venice, or make connection fragmented, like if you walk through the new parts of the Seaport District in Boston, where it's all high-rise glass towers, right? We also talk about neurodiversity, stress, and trauma. We mention how the founding fathers like Gropius, Mies, Neutra, they had post-traumatic stress disorder, and they saw the world differently. And that made them make a blank or foundation for modern architecture. It works differently because they were perceiving things differently. And then we talk a lot about how understanding biology can make us build for well-being. And that's also quite important. There's a lot here. There are, we have 50 authors, 31 chapters, and everyone's bringing in different pieces. Alexandros, how would you sum it up?
Yeah, I would say, well, I think you described it very well. I would say, if I want to say something very brief, is that it makes people aware of deep factors, deep parameters that influence our relationship with the environment that have been ignored for the last 100 years, although we had understood them implicitly for the previous 5,000 years.
Nikos, you do have a chapter in the book. Would you like to say something?
No. I want to ask Ara, who is the most recent architecture graduate, if these questions were ever discussed in architecture school, or was design approached by image and by status and by fashion while ignoring the human body's responses to the designs, which is the opposite of what we're trying to do here. So Ara, you tell us from the inside of architecture school.
Yeah, the human body's reaction was either ignored, or it was if you force someone to have like even a negative reaction just to get them to have a reaction, it was embraced. And also, Mies van der Rohe, Le Corbusier, Walter Gropius, they were our heroes. You couldn't question them. They were like the greatest of all time. You can't question them, and you the best you could do is imitate them. Mies van der Rohe, yeah, Gropius, Corbu.
Well, so now they know Le Corbusier was autistic in the autism spectrum. And but you have to understand what's so interesting is even the term autism spectrum diagnosis, post-traumatic stress disorder, doctors didn't know till 1980. And the ability to use functional magnetic resonance imaging to really see the soft tissue in the brain and how it changes after trauma, that I was reading the other day, that didn't happen till like 1995, where they started finally looking at Vietnam vets, seeing how their brain shrunk, because they couldn't understand why the vets after Vietnam War couldn't snap out of it. And so a lot of this is relatively new, 30 years old stuff, and it hasn't been integrated into the architectural education yet.
And the project you guys have on the cover, we just looked at it briefly. We're like, oh, this is a Palladio building. Next. And then like you stare at the Mies van der Rohe buildings and the Corbu buildings, but the buildings of like Palladio and Borromini, we just flew by.
Right. Whereas,
so much there to look at.
What's so amazing about Palladio is his building was the inspiration for the White House. George Washington in 1800 hired an Irish architect who had copied his buildings to do a version of the White House. And then this version of this White House that has this portico on it, then it was put on every $20 bill. It's like, what? How did this building in Italy get everywhere? And then you understand that biologically it fits what we want to see. It's now a World Heritage Site, by the way. And I tracked it. Yeah, there it is. It's a World Heritage Site. It was designed.
We're talking about the Villa Rotunda?
The Villa Rotunda is a World Heritage Site.
Well,
yeah, I pulled up the White House.
Yeah, look, since Nir is not here, our friend Dr. Nir Buras is a classical architect and he loves classical buildings. But we have discovered using neuroscience that hundreds of millions of buildings that don't look classical, but they have traditional detailing and biophilic properties and coherence, geometrical coherence. They connect in a positive way to the human body. That's what we have discovered. It's not only these Renaissance or classical buildings. They happen to be a subset of world architecture that does connect. But modern, high modernism and deconstructivism and some postmodernism does not connect. This is what the lesson is. And that is why the architectural mainstream is reacting very negatively to these scientific results. So far,
I'm not sure they are. I think a lot of them just didn't know. They didn't know the history of
Well,
architecture. And then I think also what I'm seeing though, and I think, all right, we're going to talk about it now, how all of a sudden talking about neuroaesthetics is a big thing. And a lot of money is going into using architecture and neuroscience, putting them together.
yeah, but the problem is that it's often just, icing. It doesn't come from real understanding of the problem. People still think that biophilia is about, snapping on some green. People
yes.
think that Bosco Verticale in Milan is biophilic, and the only thing that's pretty about it are the trees. You take the trees out, it's hideous. So, so it's a buzzword now. It's neuroscience, everything, but it doesn't mean that it's being used correctly. Because
But
if these people,
it definitely is. It definitely is a buzzword. And
it is
yeah,
a buzzword, but there's
totally
also
a
a
buzzword.
danger. There's also a danger in that because it gets diluted. You know, um,
Well, this
if
is Dr. Alexandros Lavdas, who's a neuroscientist who's become interested in architecture.
And he's also a member of our
since
board on the Human Architecture and Planning Institute.
And I should add, I have co-authored like 3 or 4 scientific articles on architecture and design based on neuroscience with Alexandros, and Alexandros with other co-authors has written another 5 or 10. So he has written more groundbreaking scientific articles on architecture than most architects and architectural academics have. And this is, my friend Alexandros.
thank you, Nico. And I must say, as I always say, that I wouldn't be doing that if it weren't for you, because it was your view on these things that attracted my attention and my interest and made me go in this direction. And
Well, I'm humbled. So, Ara, would you like to invite Alexandros to go through his chapter and present the
Yes,
highlights? We had it
yes,
on in the
absolutely.
beginning.
Right.
so,
Yeah.
we were talking about the dragons. I think we covered the dragons and we covered what it means. Well, we covered the
No, no,
serpents.
you didn't say the dragons.
We
You
I
covered
said
said
the
the serpent.
snakes.
I
We
still
covered
cover
the
the serpent,
snakes.
the snakes.
Uh,
Well, the dragon is like all the predators together. Yes, it's a snake and it's a bird of prey and a lion, and so it's like a meta being that incorporates all this together, and this is why we have it in various mythologies. Yes. Now, the point of putting the picture of the snake next to Raquel Welch was this. We showed that snakes are scary for very specific reasons. It is hardwired in our brain that the snake should be scary. At the same time, the idea that beauty is just something that is cultural and changes completely that's also not correct. It's culturally modulated. There's no doubt about it. Okay, we see a cultural modulation, but it's not brought up from zero. It's not invented in every civilization. There is no doubt that what seems attractive is related to what is perceived as the ability for creating healthy children that will survive. There's no doubt about it. And pretending that it's otherwise is not progressive, I think. It's just, just hiding our head in the sand. Now, there's something that I discussed there. There was, Immanuel Kant has said that that beauty is about disinterested interest, that we find something beautiful that is not, it doesn't have to be useful to us to be beautiful. And that is true, but it's true at the proximal level. So you can find Raquel Welch beautiful, although it's very highly unlikely, even when she was alive, that you would have children with her. But at the evolutionary level, the reason you find her beautiful is because she embodies those qualities. I mean, this is just an example, and I put this. I picked a particular actress because when I was writing the chapter, I saw a comment. Some was Facebook, I think, there was a picture of Raquel Welch in a swimming suit, and somebody said, "When will these people, in show, the actresses and whatever, stop making those eye candy shots and do something serious?" And I said, "This sounds progressive, but actually, it's like you're ignoring human nature." Um, and it's along the same lines, I think, that we should think about the idea of, yeah, this is Perkis, yes. I don't know Kant, sorry. Beauty and the Sublime, yeah. Yeah. So it is along those same lines, I think we should view the idea that architecture is something that can be just invented from scratch. There's a lot of work that has shown that there are particular qualities of geometrical qualities of buildings. Nikos has done a lot of that since many years, since 30 years, that correspond to what we find beautiful. And I think this puts a new perspective on the idea of functionality, because people think of something functional only if it relates to, how easily the window opens, or if the ceiling doesn't leak, or, but it's not just that. I think we should start again to understand that geometric organized complexity in buildings is functional, because it helps us perceive the building in a way that is easy.
Yes, excuse me, Ara, can you magnify this so people can read the title? This is a landmark paper with Alexandros, by Alexandros and me. Can you magnify as much as possible? Okay, I don't know if, yeah, that's the largest. So, Architectural Beauty, Developing a Measurable and Objective Scale by Alexandros and myself, from 2022.
And this is something our nonprofit really wants to do. We're the Human Architecture and Planning Institute. And the idea is to develop a scale for this. What's so interesting in the sustainable design industry, they talk about LEED and scales for building modeling, energy modeling, but they never have a scale for how people will feel walking into the building.
Yes.
They don't even look at that. And so they think their buildings are sustainable, ignoring the human experience, which is not how the luxury brands think, and it's not how the car companies think.
Yes, yeah. I want to make a detour, because Alexandros studied in London with the great Professor Samir Zeki, who is the leading neuroscientist who has devoted a lot of time to looking at how beauty is perceived in the brain. Architects have no idea of who Samir Zeki is.
He's really the founder of the field, I would say, of neuroaesthetics. He was not my supervisor in my PhD, but he was one of my professors. And so I was exposed to his work a lot during his lectures and seminars at UCL. So yeah, that was the seed that was planted, so to speak, first. And then that was the first part. And then it was Nikos who sort of brought me in this direction.
Well, the work of Professor Zeki is fundamental to any architect, but he's totally unknown.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's so interesting is this beauty thing is commodified and made profitable. What's so interesting is how the luxury brands, we did talk about this a little bit, I think, at a previous thing, how the luxury brands know that beauty matters. And they're right. They don't even question it. They just go for it.
Well, they're making a lot of money.
Yeah, and they realize you make money on it, and it matters, and feelings matter. But I think you have to understand the dissociation when you study human beings. Not talking about feelings is a survival strategy, and there was so much trauma the first 50 years of the 20th century. There's a reason modern architecture came not talking about emotions or feelings. It's quite understandable. It's predictable even.
This is Samir Zeki?
Yeah. And also, can you magnify his face?
It looks like it's. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe you should get the Turkish.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I was trying to find the English Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that people after the wars, especially after the Second World War, I think, wanted to feel that they have a fresh start. So it was the appeal of the fresh start.
I, I,
I have various old magazines and books, etc. So I was, as some people know, in Greece, although the big cities, Athens, Thessaloniki, were not particularly hit by the war, there was massive rebuilding after war, massive, I mean, criminally massive rebuilding. And I found a magazine from late 50s saying that, yeah, there is some nostalgia about the old buildings, but there is a health to the new ones, you see, a health. And I found
no,
it so interesting. And only 10 years later, another article, the late 60s, same magazine was saying that the situation is getting unbearable. We're full of apartment buildings everywhere. So 10 years difference between the excitement and the desperation.
Yes.
but I think what you said is exactly right. It was a worldwide phenomenon that we're going to have a fresh start and start from zero. Gropius apparently
Yeah,
would
yeah,
say
yeah.
to his students at Harvard, forget the past, start from zero. You know, and,
Yeah,
and I,
yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
I saw that in my parents too. Well, they were not in World War II, but they experienced the impact of it as teenagers. And was so interesting. My father's first job was he was going to make plastics. You know, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
We are a little biased here because, you know, Raquel Welch is attractive to a male, but how about
Yeah,
someone who's attractive to a female? How about one of my favorite actors, Eli Wallach, when he was young?
yeah. I think that's well. I think that's the point. What I was saying is that I think that both men and women, and both gay and straight, would agree that she is beautiful, because these evolutionary, how should I say, tendencies have filtered through our culture, the same way as the story of the snake has filtered through our culture. So you don't have to be man or woman, gay or straight, to agree that she's beautiful. It's just
No, but they know that I don't know if you guys know this. The only field where women consistently make many more times than money than men is modeling.
mhm.
Because female models are just make many more. That's what people like looking at. It's
Yeah.
preset evolutionarily. It has to be preset.
Well, they certainly make more money than university professors.
Yes, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but the female model will make many more times money than the male model. And
Oh,
that's
really?
international. Oh,
Really?
yes, of course. That's international.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
That's international. Yeah, so it's preset.
yeah, so, you know, we're sorry we keep interrupting Alexandros as he's going through
No,
his
no.
chapter.
For me, this is a discussion more than anything else. So yeah, that was the point here. Maybe we can go to the next page. So yes, that's another interesting part, and it fits very well with what Nico said about Semir Zeki. What Zeki and his colleagues have shown is that there is a specific part of the prefrontal cortex, the medial orbital prefrontal cortex, that always responds to beauty. So when you perceive something as beautiful, you have this part lighting up in functional MRI scans. Okay, it can be beauty from in a building, in a human, in music, in mathematics. Whenever you feel that this is beautiful, this lights up. It's not the only thing that lights up, but this is consistent in lighting up. Now, the prefrontal cortex in general is the part of the brain that is responsible for what some people call executive functions. To be more detailed, one could say, and something more relevant to our discussion, it's a part of the brain that balances the desire to do something with potential outcome of that action. Okay, so it's like, well, and this is why, and the prefrontal cortex, by the way, is the last part of the brain to mature. So it matures up until the early 20s, even the age of 25. And this is why, for example, somebody who is like in the late teens can do stupid things, although they're otherwise clever. They can drink and drive, which they wouldn't do when they were 30, you know? And that's the thing, the balance is not well established. And Zeki, with some colleagues, wrote an article a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, saying that we have these two sets of data. We have the prefrontal cortex actually guiding us through the correct actions by balancing, by predicting potential outcomes, and accepting or rejecting, courses of action. And we have again the prefrontal cortex, the seat of the sensation of beauty. And if that does not scream that sensing beauty is the most functional thing you could have, I don't know what does scream that, because feeling that something is beautiful is a reassurance that you're on the right track to something.
But it's bigger than that too. It brings people together.
Yeah, okay, that's another level, but let's
Yeah.
I think this is
It's
very
not
important.
it's not just Alexandros sees it as beautiful. Anne's going to see it as beautiful, and Ara's going to see it as beautiful. Everybody, it
Oh,
brings us together.
yeah.
It has
Yeah.
a social function that we ignore. The way, oh my God, did you just see the article in the New York Times how they're trying to fix the Tour Montparnasse in Paris?
Yes,
It's
another topic.
yeah.
They hired one of the old mercenaries. Yeah, Renzo
Yeah, but they
Piano.
realize it's only 50 years after it's built. They realize it really didn't work.
Let's not get distracted by Renzo Piano. We have exposed here a fundamental truth that our civilization ignores. The part of the brain that perceives beauty is the part of the brain responsible for the human evolution and for human well-being.
Yes.
Okay, where is the media that is advertising this fundamental finding that exists in the literature with many, many publications?
We'll get it out there.
It's functional, and it's really something functional. They say form follows function. Well, what is it? Because this is a very important function,
Yeah, but it's really important function. It brings people together. We're a social group. We're meant to work together and be together. And beautiful buildings, like, oh my God, the amount of press that Sagrada Familia is getting for getting finished finally this year. Yeah, it's apparently the tallest church in the world now. And the amount of money people poured in to finish this building, to make a beautiful architectural experience that's not classical, by the way. It's it's quite beautiful though. And we need beauty to survive as a species and to flourish.
I heard the prefrontal cortex matures earlier in women than it does in men.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the female brain declines slower than in men. They finally studied it. It's 3 years slower.
Wow.
With aging.
So if the prefrontal cortex is still maturing in our early 20s, so does our perception of beauty change from from being toddlers, from we're more toddlers to when we're in our 20s?
Well, I don't know if that aspect of it matures and to which degree. I think there are some things that are that are obvious even earlier, and I think I discussed them in the chapter, like the fact that, first of all, very early on, infants have been attracted to their mother's face, and again, it has a survival function because they have to see where she is, and also very early on, a bit later than that, but still very early on, they spend more time looking at faces that adults deem to be attractive. So there is this aesthetic criterion of beauty at that age, at the infant stage. And again, this completely shatters all the discussion about the fashionable discussion about everything being socially constructed. And the thing is, we should have gone past that, because I think it's no coincidence that the time where modernism was king in architecture was the same time that behaviorism was king in psychology. And people thought that you could just turn anyone into anything with the appropriate environment. And this is not the case. This is not the case.
Alexandros, can I ask you to just to give a brief summary for our architecture students who are viewing this? Yes. How the perception of beauty is innately hardwired because of our survival evolution. However, as the child grows up, society can impose layers that numb some of this and give a more directed preference for things that are not really beautiful, but it messes things up. And that's exactly what happens in architecture school.
Yes, because, well, if you are presented with sets of ideas at an age that you're still very sort of impressionable, so to speak, sets of ideas that seem clever, that seem constructive, that seem creative, and um, it's very easy to be attracted to those ideas. And I think once once you get into that path, um, it's even psychologically difficult to get off it because you have invested a large amount of your time and your intellectual effort in understanding, um, and it becomes a kind of an acquired taste. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that it's like this deep down. I think that people are attracted to the intellectual side of modernism. I do not think that people really feel um, that they are at home when they're in an environment that is full of buildings that do not satisfy all these geometrical prerequisites, so to speak, that need to have to be truly biophilic. So I think that's it. I mean, there are people who have gone through architecture education and then they come out of the university and they say, what have I been doing? And they change course completely. It's not something unheard of. I mean, I have friends who've done this. So I think there's a kind of internal struggle, and I think it's like the more time you spend in it, the more difficult it is to abandon it. But I don't think there is any biological change really happening in the brain. I think it's
Right. I think you're right.
Yes,
Right.
it's
yes.
just something. It's something superimposed. It's intellectual.
Okay, but it's still very dangerous because you and Anne
Oh,
are pioneers in using visual attention scans, and visual attention scans show the natural attraction to a building. Yet something like the Boston seafront district is built with glass skyscrapers that measure zero on the visual attention scans, and this is a $2 billion project. How can they make such a stupid mistake on such an enormous scale?
Right. Right. Well, I think
well, I
the
think
problem is architects don't, I don't mean to cut you off, but architects don't really control the industry. It's the finance capitalism that controls it. It's the banks, it's the realtors, it's the finance capital. The
Well,
architects have less and less control of what's getting built.
somebody makes decisions to create huge numbers of very large buildings that disassociate.
Yep. Yep.
Those
It's
are
exactly
decisions. Those are decisions that affect thousands and tens of thousands of people
right.
for many years.
I was 17 when I started architecture school, so obviously my brain was still developing. And they were telling us, you don't talk about beauty because beauty is subjective. And I ate it up. And it was like, you look at Le Corbusier, what did he talk about? The brise soleil. Oh, you shade from the harsh sun and you bring in the breeze. And that's how you talk about your architecture, make it very technical. And at the time I ate it all, but it took me some time. But what you guys are saying, it makes a lot of sense to me to realize that beauty is not subjective. There is
No,
an
it's not.
objective.
Beauty is not subjective, or 1 million people wouldn't go to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa. I mean, it's not subjective. It's reset. If you want to see our vast study, if you want to see the vast study of the Seaport district really quickly, just go to genetics of design, put in Seaport, it'll come right up, and you'll see why it fails. The brain non-consciously cannot attach to it. Just go genetics of design, and then put in Seaport district in the search button here. Seaport. See the Seaport right there? Seaport. It'll come right up.
Yeah, but you don't have one building. You have a block,
the top one. The top one.
a block of
Scroll
buildings that are inhuman.
Yeah, that's
the first one.
it.
The first one.
The first one. There it is. So that's what they built in the past 15 years in Boston. And that's what they built. And to make it feel better, in the center strip in the road, they've put up all these statues of little animals to make them cute. And they say, and the animals will have a sign, come to the Seaport, They've done that because look, this just shows, this is what was at the Seaport before in that area, before the traditional.
Yeah, it's nice industrial buildings.
And it works. And now they designed something that non-consciously the brain's going to look around.
Yeah, show that picture, Ara. Yeah, the eye refuses.
If you press on it, it'll.
No, press on it. Click on it.
If you click on it, there it goes.
Yeah, the eye refuses to look at these buildings. They're awful.
And you don't know where to look. It's very confusing for the brain. Where do I look? Do I look? I guess I look at the sky.
Yeah. And there's the other thing, it has been shown with galvanic skin response studies that walking around in a district like that actually raises your stress level.
Yeah, of course.
And we can explain this very easily. These buildings, these environments are very difficult to read, very difficult. They're not perceptually fluent because we know now, and we've known for some time, that these geometric qualities that we're discussing make things very easy to understand. So it seems counterintuitive if you don't know the topic, because you might say, how is it easier to perceive a tree than to perceive this thing? This is very simple. It should be easier. But it's the opposite. We're tuned to the organized complexity of nature. So it just registers. And this has been shown actually with trying fractals, exposing people to fractal structures, fractal forms in the functional MRI scanner. And fractals don't require any extra effort. No network is recruited. It's like you're doing nothing. You're seeing a fractal, your brain is, okay, nothing's happening. If you're looking at this, there is an effort. So there is a stress at a physiological level. And this has been shown actually by studies by Wilkins and other people, that parallel lines at a certain apparent distance actually require more effort to be perceived, to be analyzed. Although it's parallel lines, somebody would say, what's so difficult about that? It's parallel lines. Well, we're not tuned to this kind of geometry. So there's the physiological stress, and there's also the psychological stress, because if you don't perceive the environment readily, then you feel exposed.
But that's a really good point.
If I may finish, you feel exposed because in the savannah or in the woods, an animal could attack you if you don't know where you are. If you have a good understanding of where you are, you can spot the predator coming very fast. If you're not even sure of what you're stepping on, it becomes more. And this stress, persists even in our time. Yes, please, Anne.
No, what I was going to say was that's really important what you're saying, because non-consciously we need to anchor. It's exactly what you're saying. Non-consciously, we need to anchor to be able to move forward easily. When you look at the Seaport District, you don't know where to anchor. You'll sit in your car. You're very confused about what to look at. And so that stress non-consciously gets you in a... And what's so fascinating in the studies we've done of buildings with repetitive parallel lines, your brain is hardwired to make you not look at them.
Yes.
Well, it's stressful. It's stressful to look at them. Yeah, it's stressful.
Yeah, it's
no. Alexandros, you and Anne, I think, met Professor Wilkins in London recently.
Yeah. He
has been publishing many papers on this topic for decades.
Yeah.
And he also published that that buildings increasingly have more parallel lines, and people are more likely to get headaches looking out the window. And I gave him a copy of our book, Cognitive Architecture.
So it makes sense that nature always defaults to fractals and not the way.
No, but the other thing that makes sense, that we didn't say, is our brain is fractal. We couldn't have 86 billion neurons. There wouldn't be a geometric form except fractal. Our eyes are fractal. So there's fractal fluency. So that's why it works.
It's the geometry of nature, basically.
It's the geometry of nature, right? We're fractal. Our eyes are fractal. Our brains are fractal. And so that's why it's stressing us. This man-made stuff doesn't fit our nature. Again, it's from the false tabula rasa. The mind's a blank slate. We can do anything we want. You can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this abstract idea that there's something special about planes and spheres and straight lines, and it's the only thing special about them is that they don't exist. They're they're arithmetic, mathematical abstractions, so we can do our job when we're calculating volumes and surfaces and distances. But that's what's special about them. They really don't exist, and that's why they're so stressful to when you look something that looks like them. I remember we had this discussion, Nico, about the Acropolis Museum in Athens, about some glass floors, how stressful they are, because consciously that this glass is safe. You're not going to fall, but you don't control the feeling of uneasiness you have.
What's really missing in architecture, mentioning Greece and these other things, is we're not taught evidence-based design. This is not evidence-based design. The Acropolis is evidence-based design.
Yeah,
it is evidence-based design. Palladio is evidence-based design. Palladio is copied 1,000 times. This is not evidence-based design, and architects aren't taught that. Well, we need evidence-based design as much as we need evidence-based medicine. It's the same thing. It's not evidence-based. We don't ask people how they'd feel.
So this is the initial Acropolis, and then we have the new Acropolis Museum.
Oh my God!
Awful place.
It's
by Tsumi. So
yeah, my God.
When I like it when it's night and you don't see it because you just see the exhibit sort of floating in midair. That's nice, yeah. But
I got into a lot of trouble because I wrote an article in Greek condemning the museum, and it was a point of honor for the Greek government to be proud of this museum, which is a piece of junk. So I got into a lot of trouble. So I have not been to Greece for 15 years.
Bernard Strumi is another architect who became very well known because of his ability to speak about his projects in a very poetic way and be entertaining. But again, it's the design work separated from the presentation of the work.
Can we leave this awful thing and go back to Alexandros' chapter?
Yes.
Because it's full of great ideas. Yeah.
But I think what we'd like to do too, sometime there's so much science we need to get out there. I'd love to work with all of you, Ara and Nikos and Alexandros, to really get the science out there and get some of the other key ideas from the handbook out there.
Okay, but look. I'm getting a little upset. All of us, the three of us, have been publishing. We have been getting the science out. The Architectural Academia has been ignoring the publication. They don't read these articles. They couldn't care less.
I think it's shifting. I think the Arts and Minds Lab. I did send it at Johns Hopkins. It is starting to shift, and in fact, there is a movement, I think, to bring neuroarchitecture into the architectural establishment. Listen, Nikos, if you study human history, paradigm shifts can be threatening. I told you before, in the 19th century, up until 1870, doctors didn't wash their hands. Why would they?
I have studied human history. During the Soviet Union, if you criticize Joseph Stalin's mustache as being in bad taste, you were taken out and shot.
No, and cars didn't have seatbelts when I was a kid ever. They weren't sexy. So it's a paradigm shift. It's a different way of thinking, and I think though we can do it. And I think we're starting. We've got a good foundation in this handbook, and I'd love to. What we need is funders to promote it, and a conference. We should do a conference.
Yeah, it's true that more people are getting interested in it, but it's still very far from the mainstream. We can, of course, be hopeful.
But it is shifting, and younger people are very
especially younger people.
The younger people are very interested in studying stress and in studying looking at it.
I'm sorry to disagree, but young architect students that I meet are totally ignorant and uninterested. They just immerse themselves in the cult images. They're not interested in learning about neuroarchitecture. They swallow what the authority tells them. And the authority in all the architecture schools is still teaching the same old stuff, just continuing the usual stuff, Bauhaus and minimalism and deconstructivism for excitement.
Yeah,
they're just not exposed.
They're not exposed to it. I think
we need to get a movie out, guys. We need to,
Look,
we need to, we need to get a conference. I
no,
think
no,
there's a
no.
ton of interest.
And you and I featured, and maybe Alexandros, in the movie, Don Ruggles movie, Building Beautiful, right? We also featured in the 3-part series in Brazil, the End of Beauty.
Most
It
people
has
haven't heard of or
tens
seen
of
those.
millions of viewers. It's in Portuguese, and we speak in English, and there are subtitles. Has tens of millions of viewers, and that's so the movies are out there, but they're not making a dent because the university system is structured to observe authority. Okay, I'm teaching a mathematics course. The students come in and they treat me as an authority, and I show them something. And they learn it. They assume that I know what I'm talking about. The same thing occurs in architecture school, but instead of teaching the recent findings on neuroscience and neuroarchitecture, they're teaching them the same old Bauhaus stuff. Nothing is going to change that way.
I see hope.
Okay,
difficult,
you're
but-
optimistic. I want ARA. ARA is the closest to the architecture school tradition and how that could change or maybe not change at all.
No, I'm optimistic also. It's just because we're exposed so much to who we look up to as our heroes, who talk about things in a certain way, and they all have a lot of overlap. But once you're exposed to the neuroscience of it, you can't ignore it. And you have to really be exposed to it and really get an in-depth view of it. And once you do, you can't just be like, oh no, I'm going back to the
Well, mentioning that, Ara, we can offer our courses. We have a link to 7 courses on understanding neuroscience. If the Happy does, it's AIA certified, and we can give your streamers a discount. We can set it up on a discount code.
Oh yeah, we have it, right? Or is this a different
Do we
one?
have it? Do we have it already? It's the
Yeah, we
same
have it.
one. Do we have it?
Yeah,
Okay, we
okay,
can
yeah,
post it again. Let's post the courses again.
Oh, for sure,
We
yeah.
have-
I gotta
and-
chop out a
and-
short out of that one too.
Yeah, let's do a short. And I actually had a PhD person said she took the courses. She was amazed. She'd studied architecture. We're going to start doing videos about the courses, what it's like understanding this. Because it isn't, the thing is, here's the thing, guys. It's a new lens to see reality when you can start to measure stress, when you can measure, even with 3M visual attention software, how people can't look at the new Seaport buildings in Boston. The people building it never do that.
Oh, speaking about scaling hierarchy. All right, I just saw it here. Salingoro's scaling hierarchy for the necklace. Last time, Nikos and Nir Boris were talking about scaling property identified by Galileo or something. Was it Galileo?
Well, it's not the same thing. Galileo says if you take something and just enlarge it, it's not going to work if you just enlarge it because it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And you have to change the structure so that the tensile strength is taken care of. You just cannot take something that's small like this, it works like this, and make it huge, which is what architects do. They make a little clay model, and then they make it, a 10-story building. It doesn't work like that. 10-story building is a monstrous thing. I guess Galileo already wrote against that. You cannot do that. So the elephant has very thick bones, whereas the mouse, has very thin bones because it has to do with the gravity and the volume to mass ratio.
So I am also. Oh, you have to head out.
Yeah, I've got to go. I'm sorry. I have another call.
No, it's all good. All good.
Let's keep.
Yeah.
Keep.
Bye-bye.
But I was also curious about this necklace diagram.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there are 2 different experiments, so to speak, all based on Nico's work on scaling. And on the right is just these pieces of plasticine organized in these different ways. And this was out as a poll. I forget now through which engine. Anyway, it was a poll, and people were asked which one they prefer and which one makes more sense. And the consistency of the adherence to scaling hierarchy on the one hand and preference on the other was astounding. I mean, it went so good I didn't expect it.
Alec, can you make the whole page from the diagram there?
I was trying. It's
So-
embedded into
so-
the ebook, and I can't just blow up
oh,
this image.
Can you just magnify the page?
So I have it in Google Play Books. I didn't get the actual separate ebook, and then here it seems like it's all embedded, and I can't
Okay.
expand it out.
So so in the on the right hand side, that panel, the bottom right one was the one that was voted as the most sort of pretty. I mean, none of this is pretty, but it's just, the best looking of all. It's the same piece of plasticine, just repeated with Photoshop and with different scaling. So the more you had this kind of scaling hierarchy, smaller, one big thing, two smaller things, four small, so on and so forth, the more it adhered to that, the more preferably it became. The more it was distant from that, the more it had huge scale jumps and things like that, the less it was voted as pretty. So, and it's 12 images, and it really followed it, I think, almost one by one to what I expected. It was really impressive. And to the left, and this
Oh,
was
there we
part
go.
of my,
Good.
And this was part of my wife's master's thesis. She's a designer, and she's like one of us. So she designed this piece of jewelry on the bottom right, and then we changed it in Photoshop and sort of destroyed the scaling hierarchy. Okay. And again, created a poll asking people which one they preferred. And as you would expect, they preferred D, and then I forget, then it was A. Then the more it lacked features and levels of scaling hierarchy, the worse it was. I mean, there's only 4 versions. Maybe it's less impressive than the one on the right, but again, you can see the same thing regardless of whether the object.
So I'm guessing D was probably the most appealing, and then A, and then maybe C last because it has no hierarchy. But D has a lot of hierarchy and articulation within the hierarchy. But A has the hierarchy without the articulation. And then C and B, it's like all one.
I think Alexandros is frozen. So while he's frozen, Christopher Alexander's 15 fundamental properties from the nature of order. One of the properties is levels of scale. So here we are capturing the levels of scale, which is built into our perception. So levels of scale, Alexander calls it, other people, we call it fractals and subdivisions. And Near calls it something else. But it's an essential part of our cognitive system.
Yeah, the 15 fundamental properties.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a chapter from my book, which is free online, Unified Architectural Theory.
So is this something that you and Christopher Alexander were developing together, or was it something he was working on before you joined?
Christopher Alexander was working on this for 30 years. I joined him in the middle and started to help him edit the text. I was not inventing things. He was inventing the things, and I was helping him to develop the text, edit the text to make it nicer. So he finally published the book in 4 volumes. In the meantime, he had gotten me totally immersed and fascinated by this. So I started to write my own articles.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So I'm wondering, was he examining a bunch of successful buildings and seeing what they had in common and coming up with levels of scale, strong centers?
Yes, but not all. He was examining all the successful and attractive buildings throughout all of human history, plus all the artifacts. That's why it's important to link with Frederick, because artifacts, artworks, artifacts, utensils, utilitarian artifacts, they all have these universal properties, the 15 fundamental properties, and these are geometrical properties. So it's not only buildings.
True.
You get a spoon, okay, to eat your yogurt with. If it feels nice in your hand, you look at it, it has the 15 fundamental properties. If you can't hold it, if it's a chore to eat your yogurt with a spoon, it's badly designed. It lacks the properties.
I think. Oh, okay. Now it's you're back.
Welcome back.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all good.
But
So,
we're almost at the end of the hour. So,
yeah.
we can
Yes,
take
yes.
yeah,
But,
let's wrap up.
yeah, I was just talking about the scaling test, and it was just impressive how much it gave us what we expected, basically, based on Nico's work on scaling hierarchy.
So Alexandros. Oh, so when yours cut out, we pulled up. We were talking about the necklace scaling, and then we pulled up Christopher Alexander's 15 fundamental properties. I'm curious. Have you looked at Christopher since after connecting with Nikos, like Christopher Alexander's work?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think uh, he was approaching in a more qualitative way, so to speak, what has been approached since his work in more quantitative ways. But there is no doubt that everyone involved in architecture should read his work. It would benefit. It would benefit
Yeah,
a
agreed.
lot. And as Nikos was saying, if he were around today, he would be delighted with what AI can do.
Yes, yes. Yes, he would be there staying up doing ChatGPT
Yeah,
all
what a
through
time
the
to be
night.
alive.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Let me
it's
say something as self-promotion for the topic. Okay, famous architects present themselves as geniuses and they hold the secret to their design, which, the design is usually terrible. We publish our results, our scientific articles are free online in very distinguished scientific journals, and we go to a lot of trouble to get them free access, not behind a paywall. Okay, now you have here a chapter of one of my books. It's free online. You go to architectures and it's free online. So we are developing these results and putting them out for architecture students, because the only way to change towards the world towards a better, healthier architecture is for people to educate themselves. So we are putting all the stuff online. Contrast that with the secret recipe that
yeah, it's a
famous
recipe. Yeah,
architects
yeah.
have.
Alexandros, you have little ones?
Yep.
Oh yeah, I hear them like running
And you
around.
can hear them. Ah, sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, it's all good. It's adorable. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a new laptop. The previous one, there was a noise gate that I had installed in the sound,
Oh.
but this one doesn't have it yet. So
No, it's all good.
no
That's
noise
all.
reduction. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for the life-changing education. It's been amazing.
Thank you so
Well,
much for
do
the
we have-
invitation.
Well, thank you for our special guest, Alexandros Lavdas.
Thank you so
Joined
much
us today.
for this good conversation we had.
Okay, bye to both. Keep well.
Bye bye.
Peace.
Bye bye. All the best.